Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show here live on the Inception Radio Network. Don't forget, Just Energy Radio can be heard each Thursday night on the Inception Radio Network from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you've missed an episode, you can always catch up. We have all the shows archived. That's over 6 years worth of archives on the Just Energy Radio webpage, www.justenergyradio.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can go to YouTube and visit the Just Energy Radio YouTube page and stream the shows off of that site. Please do subscribe if you go there. You can friend us on Facebook to keep up with who's coming on the show, or you can download the app, which is so cool. Anyway, something I didn't mention, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com and the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. Don't forget, if you're in the New York area, come to New Paltz or Albany, New York, June 21st or 22nd. Check out soulhealer.com for the times and dates and hang out with me, Dr. Rita. I'll answer all your questions, sign your books. All right, I was told I can't sign people's butts anymore, so no butts, but I'll sign your books. And I can't believe I just said that out loud on the air, but it's only live radio. Anyway, so this hour we're going to be, and I'm hoping I'm saying this right, but I'm sure she'll correct me. We're going to be speaking to Charlotte Szivak about animal communication. Let me tell you a little bit about Charlotte. Charlotte Szivak is an ancient wisdom keeper, spiritual intuitive, and full sensory perception healer and teacher of metaphysics channeling the angelic ascended masters, emissaries, or star councils of light. Overlighted by the order of Melchizedek, Metatron, and the company of heaven, her transformational sessions are inspire and empower you to recognize and embrace your authentic divinity and connect to source, instilling the wisdom of an open heart. So from www.charlotteszivak.com, Charlotte Szivak. Hey, Charlotte, was I close?
Yeah, you were pretty close. If you think of Honda Civic, you'll never get it wrong.
Ah.
It's the
when people tell me like weird stuff like that, I never forget.
And you know what's really crazy is my name, when you translate it into English, actually means heart. So it's kind of wild to say the language of the heart or readings from the heart. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. No, that's cool.
It's really cool. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. It's really amazing to be here.
Well, I'm just so excited to have you on. You know, we were supposed to have you on a few months ago, and then that was a fiasco. But,
yes, the Mercury retrograde fiasco. We always love that drama.
Yeah. But you're here now, and I'm so excited to have you on because I think we've only done one other show about animal communication, and that was like 6 years ago.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. It was a good friend of mine that did angel and animal communication, and so it's time to revisit that topic. So, yay.
Well, I'm so glad and I'm so honored, and I could talk your ear off about this. So you might need
okay. Well, we got an hour. So
right. Well, you might have to crack the whip.
So let's start here. I mean, one of the things I like to do if it's your first time on the show, I just like to get a little history so that, you know, when we have you back on, you know, people can go to the archives and get your story at some point in time. So how did you get into the whole metaphysical animal communication, you know, order of Melchizedek
and all that fun stuff?
All that stuff.
Well, I've been doing this about 6,000 years, so, you know, if you saw me, you'd know I'm doing pretty good with the oil of Olay, so. But,
you're starting already. I can just tell how this interview is going to go.
Oh, yeah. I was born actually on the new moon solar eclipse, and I had no clue what that meant, but it's quite an amazing alignment when you read up about it afterwards. But I thought everybody could do it. I saw angels and was talking to animals when I was like 3 and 4 years old. And honestly, I thought everybody could do it. So I really didn't think it was anything that special. So it was just something that I just did. And as I was growing up and also, going through my own life as well too, there were so many things that were changing and shifting, and I was always drawn into, reading. So I got into doing all the psychic stuff, if you want to call it, and becoming a healer. And I got to the point where I was at a space where I was in full sensory perception, where I had X-ray vision and I could see through the body and pinpoint down to like even which vertebrae was out of alignment. But what was getting me more than anything was alchemy, because I was really getting interested in the mind and also in the spiritual aspects or the shadow aspects of the soul. I wanted to know more because I didn't want to be just one of those psychics, that people come up to and say, hey, can you give me the lotto numbers or something? And I was like, because that's not what this is about. So I was really interested in the personal development side of it, the soul aspect of it, and where it could go and how you can develop yourself to be, your highest unlimited potential. And through meeting amazing people and through doing all the readings that I've been doing now I've been doing this almost 22, 24 years in this life, many other opportunities would open up. And I was such a, I don't know if voracious is the right word, but I read everything. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And that just kept leading me to new things where I started to work with the Palladians and the Syrians and the Andromedans and Arcturians, working with the different emissaries, being taught about their light technologies and the energy frequencies, and learning into all aspects of multidimensional being. And already I had the sense with the healing energy that was coming through my hands that I could already commune with nature, the animals, spirits, and, the trees and everything. So, again, like I said earlier, it was just something I thought was just normal to everybody. But it was also, too, as I grew in my own knowledge and wisdom and learning from the people that had come into my life, was that was all parts or gifts that come with the divine feminine. And some of the issues I was going through was that I wasn't completely anchored in my physical body, and I wasn't really anchored with even like the physical realm around me. It was like I was too overdeveloped and kind of blown out of my body. So I had to learn how to ground and anchor and start to learn all the other elements and aspects that you need to know. So that's when I turned to mystery schools. And it was actually the Palladians that taught me a lot of the same things that they teach through the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. And through that led me to life lessons related to Lemuria and Avalon and the high priestesses, and it led me down an even amazing more path where I got into sacred geometry, and I'm like absolutely obsessed with sacred geometry and astrology. And I feel that astrology at this point in time is one of the clearest keys of what is happening in our universe as we're evolving and growing as conscious beings. And so I was always fascinated with the brain, and I thought there's got to be another element to this. It can't just be, this chemical on this side of the brain and that chemical, when they mix together, something happens. And so I really started to become like a cosmic trigger. And when I really started to evolve and grow was probably around 2008, when I really first stepped into alchemy and the shadow and learning to embrace all my pain and my heartache and everything and transmuting the energy to light. And it became so amazing how it transformed my life that it was flying doors open in so many different directions that I was stepping into spaces where I was now speaking in front of groups about all sorts of topics. They put me on to now where I'm on the morning show in the local city that I live in, and traveling, doing TV shows for Discovery and Animal Planet, and becoming an expert for another TV show on Slice Network, all with the spiritual aspect. So it wasn't just being just a psychic. It was basically the whole aspects, meaning that the whole multidimensional aspect of self, but, presenting yourself first as a psychic, because then it kind of puts you sort of like into that, out of the box sort of a space. So it's really hard to just say it was just one step, one thing. It was everything, and I'm so grateful that I just felt my way through the whole journey instead of thinking my way through, because sometimes I didn't know what was going on. And what blew my mind was when I started to lead journeys, sacred journeys and sites to across the planet. We've been to taking people to Hawaii and Mexico, and just incredible stories that I don't even know how to put into words because I don't have the vocabulary to describe what happened at these sacred sites with these people, but just mind-blowing things. And to be able to have full sensory perception, which means you have use of all of your abilities, clairsentient, claircognitive, so you know, you feel, you see, you hear, it was really incredible as I started to really apply everything I learned through the mystery schools from Egypt and Avalon and Lemuria, how I started to become more and more anchored and started to be able to bring forth that divine creation. So what happened was now I'm writing a book which is called Soul Ignition, Divine Creation, to help others to be able to also do the same thing, where they learn how to heal and clear out their emotional selves, their physical selves, so they can allow for the descent of the spirit or the soul to come and take up full resonance within the space so that we may all here totally create heaven on earth, being completely in commune with all aspects, not only of ourselves, but with nature and abundance and creativity, and being able to, understand the lessons of the shadow and understand that it truly is just an ally, and when we embrace it, it becomes a gift. So animal communication was just so beautiful because we say it's language of the heart. And if anybody has ever been in a position where they've been heartbroken or just lost, sometimes they'll go and they'll either adopt an animal, and the things that happen are so miraculous because we think that, we rescue the animals, but in truth, they rescue us. And learning everything that I have, I used to have a rabbit with me, Rhino. He actually passed away 2.5 years ago, but he lived to be 12 and a half. And he used to travel with me on tour when we were going into all the different cities to do psychic expos and lectures. And we'd be teaching animal communication, and he'd be there with me. And it was amazing what he would do and how he would connect with the audience and how he would allow them to also be able to connect in with him on teaching them how to communicate with their own beloved animals. And when Rhino passed, now I have my dog Sushi. You might hear her in the background running around. But they've been present for every workshop I've ever taught or every meditation night that we've ever held. So they themselves have become their own little ascended master puppies and animals. And it's incredible when I was doing the Merkava workshop where I actually invoked and activated it for my dog Sushi. She's a beautiful white lab. And the changes that happened in her were just mind-blowing. So whenever I'm dealing with or working within that sense, and I meet other fellow light workers and healers, and if they're also teaching, I always ask them, please invite your dog, your animal, to come in and do the activations with them. Grow with your animals, because it's amazing how it elongates their life as well, too. And now Sushi herself is getting close to the age of 13, and she still behaves like she's 3 years old. It's unbelievable. So it's unbelievable how many different things we can talk about. There's this amazing meditation we can do where you can trade places with your animal so that you literally leave from your physical body and your soul and go into their body, and you switch places with them. And it gives you such incredible insight into what they go through. And it's very funny when we ask afterwards, what did you get? What did your dog say? And they were like, they didn't want to give up driving the car because they really enjoyed it. And it's really incredible. And this soul linking connection meditation, which we're actually working on right now, doing one of those animated visualizations. We have a few already that you can find on YouTube and on our new website, which is actually called aportaltoenlightenment.com, where there is all kinds of activations and invocations and blog posts and everything on animal communication and all the other aspects that can help you with you yourself evolving and growing. And this soul linking thing has been so mind-blowing that when I have people call me when they've had animals that have been lost or even stolen, we've been able to connect in with them, and the results of them coming home have they've been mind-blowing. So before I was always scared to do animals that had been lost, because when I'd ask them, where are you? What do you see? They'd be like, well, I see a house, I see a car. It's not like we have 6 gazillion of those everywhere, right? So it was getting a little hard on pinpointing on where they were. And upon using this soul linking technique, it just changed everything. And the beauty of it was that it would also deepen your relationship with your animal, and you would be able to telepathically communicate with them from any place in the world. So I know some people listening might be like, oh, yeah, okay, we'll see if that works. But again, language of the heart is all about feeling. It's not about thinking. And we know, too, as we're also evolving now to this third dimensional reality and really embracing the fifth dimension, how it's all about feeling. It's not about what you see. We're really seeing past the illusion now and the glamour of the third dimension, and recognizing that, in truth, all you need is your heart. You need to listen with your heart and think with your heart and feel with your brain, and it's unbelievable how things totally change and transform. And animals sure lead the way for us. They also have their own... Pardon me?
Well, let me interject a question here.
Yes.
I mean, 'cause when you're communicating, we'll use you. So when you're communicating with an animal, what you're talking about is not like a clairvoyant connection, but you're talking about a heart-to-heart feeling connection, and that's how your communication is taking place? Or is
Actually,
it kind
both.
of all... Okay, talk
it's
about
all
that.
encompassing, because animals communicate three different ways. And you can either hear their voice. I mean, it's not like Mr. Ed, you know how their lips move, right? It's, you can literally hear their voice. Or you can get a mental telepathical imprint, or some animals will show you pictures. So it's really up to the person that is trying to communicate with their animal or is engaging in communicating with animals to really trust their own sense of how the animal is communicating to them. Because, say for example, like with my rabbit Rhino and Sushi, Rhino I would actually hear speaking, but Sushi would always telepathically communicate with me. And just because Rhino would communicate with words wouldn't mean that every other rabbit would also communicate with words too. They all have their different personalities. I mean, I could tell you stories of some of the crazy things that have happened to me with squirrels and horses.
Well, and then let me ask this, because, I was making my little list, as you know.
Oh, of course.
And, and one of the things I was wondering, I mean, because usually the questions I write down are things that I'm wondering, It's like I have people that come on because they can answer all my questions. I can save myself reading the book. I don't even have to watch the movie. I just do a show about it.
Yeah, that's good. You get the movie rights that way.
And so cats, dogs, horses, I can get that. Rabbits, I can get. But I mean, do you ever do or have had the situation arise, I'll phrase it this way, where someone wants to do animal communication with a snake?
Yes. I've had people bring me tarantulas, hedgehogs.
I mean, is it the same? Because I kind of can't wrap my mind around that.
Well, everything has a soul. We just have different vehicles, different bodies. So every sentient being, every animal, insect has a soul. And when they're, for example, ants or dolphins or whales, have you ever heard of the term oversoul? Mm-hmm. Then you can also communicate with the oversoul of the entire species instead of just the single, for example, single ant. And it's incredible how you get the messages across with them as well, too, and how much they know. I was an expert on this one TV show called Newlywed, Nearly Dead, and it was hilarious. It was about people who would get married, and after a year they'd want to, kill each other. So they bring in these experts to, talk to them and, help them to heal their relationship and be able to continue. But in this instance, they brought me in because the couple they were interviewing actually had a dog, and they wanted to hear what the dog had to say about their relationship. It was so mind-blowing. Afterwards, the things that the dog said... All right,
so what did the dog have to say? I mean, I always joke around that mine is film at 11. That's...
This dog was to the point where he could even talk about what had happened to them as children and how they were still carrying around some of those wounds, and it was really causing the misunderstanding and the fighting that was going on within their relationship. It was so scaringly, I want to say, accurate that the couple actually asked for it not to be aired because it was so beyond what they were expecting that they didn't know how to handle it. It was so wild. So they kept the footage, and the producers, they offered me a TV show, so it was kind of funny. But the interesting thing about the whole thing was how much they truly know, how much they're perceptive, how much they get it. They don't just want to know, that they're telling you, you're already communicating with your animal. You know when they're hungry. You know when they got to go to the bathroom. But this is taking it to a whole other level. And what's amazing and what I see time and time and time again is that I would say about 85% to 90% of the time, the animal has exactly the same issue as the human counterpart. And it's incredible how much they take on in their understanding of what the person is going through. And it's even more amazing, too. I mean, you may have heard two dogs that can detect cancer. But in this instance, if your dog, for example, has cancer, it doesn't mean that you have cancer. But it can represent, and for those of you who have ever read Louise Hay's book on Heal Your Body, where it talks about cancer being a deep grief eating away at the soul, then it could be whatever the person isn't dealing with emotionally, and the animal takes it on for them so that they can be more clear. So it's almost as if they're literally like your incarnated little angel, and they run around and absorb and take on your emotional issues, your fears, your anxieties, and your stress. They know your moods. And many of them have etheric cords, which, if for those of you listening who aren't aware of what etheric cords are, they literally almost look like octopus tentacles, and they connect in through the different chakras. And you have them with every person that you have a connection with. And it's energy that runs in between the two. So whenever you have an animal that you have rescued or has been abandoned, what the first thing I always do is I tune in to see how many of the etheric cords they have connected to them from their previous owner, and release them, cut them off with the help of the angels, which is usually Archangel Michael, and then heal and seal those wounds and help them to reestablish and be able to connect themselves with their new owner. And this is when I would go to doing the heart connection, where we would do the soul linking. It helps to establish a stronger connection and helps you to also activate their heart, because not all dogs or animals have their heart activated yet. And you can see that in the wild, because animals that are in the wild, of course, they have that innate survival mechanism that's already inside of them. And for them, too, on their karma, their wheel of reincarnation, they also are on, the only way that their species can evolve is if they're in a human heart-based relationship.
I mean, the part I find fascinating about this whole thing is there's that whole contingency. I mean, obviously not me, so that's why I'm saying the contingency that make these comments, well, animals don't have souls. And I'm like, huh? Because I just find it ludicrous that they would make totally, that statement. I mean, okay, maybe ants. Well, actually, ants seem pretty smart. Cows. I can see cows being maybe a little soulless. A snake. Yeah. They could go in that category.
Well, watch out when you're in India and if you say that.
All right, June bugs. Okay, they're like totally on the bottom of my list. I'm like, millions of years of evolution. And mosquitoes are smart. There could be the lone mosquito in Japan, and it will fly across the ocean and sting me. So it can't be that dumb. Multiple times, and then I kill it. So they should just stay in Japan. No.
Don't get over here.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but okay. Our show, I don't want to say mascot, the show Chupacabra, Miss Bitsy, the poodle with the tinfoil hat, Facebook superstar, which she is, hasn't been feeling very good the last few days. And I have a couple other questions because you've talked about some stuff, and but I'm just going to start there. I mean, do you need any more information? But it's. You
said she's a poodle, and how old is she? That's all.
She is 10, and she's a superstar. And a chupacabra. That's her.
Well, I'm sorry, a chupacabra. I don't even know what that is.
The hairless, blood-sucking. Look it up. She's a chupacabra. only on the show. That's her, like, Just Energy Radio alter ego to make her sound tough. Shh. They're not supposed to know she's a poodle. She's a chupacabra.
The first thing I picked up on her was that she was very mental, and I thought it was really funny when you said she had a tin hat on, but you can't read me, I'm like Magneto.
Well, but that's my question, too. You ask her a question. I mean, I had another poodle, and her name was Kiko, and she and I would talk all the time. And if there was something the matter, I could ask her, and she would be very forthcoming with me. Bitsy, you ask her a question, and boom, she shuts down. Boom. It drives me crazy because you can kind of like slide in, but if you're direct with her, like, do you need to go outside? She looks at you like, what?
Really?
Like Magneto, like she put her little hat on. But go ahead.
Well, she feels very mental, which tells me she overanalyzes and contemplates absolutely everything. The other thing that I was picking up was I was seeing a little bit of shadows around her joints in her hind legs, but near the knees and also up in through to the spinal column. I see it down around and vets tell me it's exactly the same as humans, that it's in her L3, 4, and 5 area. It actually feels as if it's a little bit compressed. I'm also getting a huge, overwhelming sense of her asking for salmon, baked, poached, whatever. She just is really craving salmon. And I would suggest definitely clearing her energy because she gets confused. She gets very confused. And what I feel with her, too, is I would really love to do this soul linking connection with you, with her, because I see the back of her heart is in shadows, and it tells me that she's carrying some heartache and grief within herself as well, too. Feels like she's missing him as well, your other one. She's not really interested in having another animal come in to the house because she does at this point. She just wants to have the connection with you. So if you were thinking about bringing in another animal, I don't advise it because it'll probably turn into a war zone at your house.
No, we have 2 cats, and it's not actually Kiko because Kiko found Bitsy for me. Kiko died or was in the process of dying, and through this whole chain of circumstances, this friend of ours said, oh, their parents had dogs, and they had poodles, and they were about to give birth. So Kiko died a week later. Bitsy was born.
Oh,
and
wow.
she taught her all like these bad things on the other side. I'm telling you. But
taunting her from the other side.
Oh no, it was hysterical. They came and they brought Bitsy when she was like, her eyes were just barely open. They would just want us to kind of check her out, make sure, we wanted her and everything. And so I'm like going to my ex, I go, so what do you think? And here's Kiko from the other side going, well, I'm cuter. And I'm like,
the back of her heart feels in shadow. She feels rejected.
Well, we had another dog, and when my ex and I split up, he took the other dog, and he was in the house, and he has passed since that time. So I could see
the dog
that.
or the husband?
Only the dog.
All right. So what I would suggest you do is if you could get some rose quartz also and place it where she likes to. If she has like a place she likes to hang out or a spot or a crate, and have it there for her because it'll help her with healing her heart. But it feels like we need to activate her heart. So the way to do it is for you to visualize or fill up the energy within your heart. Fill up the energy of love within your heart. And then when you feel that sense full, you send a tube of light and pink, because it's the color of divine love, into where her heart center is. So you would visualize her in front of you, see her face, her body, and then send this pink tube of light into her heart. And you keep sending the energy in until you see her, the entire part, of her heart filled with this energy of love. And you know when you have that connection with her because you'll feel the energy bounce right back. It's incredible. If you like, we can try it right now. And for those listening in, we could ask them, too, to visualize their own animals.
I'm already doing it. And she's like, hey.
What?
She's liking it. No, she's not giving me a what. She was like, yeah, I have been kind of depressed.
Oh.
And, but of course, the first comment was, well, I like pink.
Just don't dye my hair that color.
Well, she has a pink pillow and a pink collar. You know, I mean, she's a pink and purple kind of
She reminds me of Jackie Onassis. Does she have a pearl collar as well?
No, rhinestone. She
Rhinestone.
likes it. She got bling.
She sounds like a real petrosexual.
No, she's a girly girl. Has to have them ribbons when she gets groomed. No bandana. Ribbons. Pink or red. Yes. Well, her pillow says princess.
Oh, my. So as you connect in and you feel the energy, you can work on this from any space. So if you're traveling anywhere in the world and you want to connect in with her, you'll get the message. And what's amazing is that this actually helps to deepen the connection and the relationship between the two of you. Now, she does feel like she needs to be grounded energetically, so I'm just visualizing tubes of light coming out from her paws and then going into the center of the earth. And I feel that's going to, oh, there it is. It's releasing the lower back. I like to also visualize their spinal column hollow and then filling it with gold and white light, because the gold helps to fuse the muscles back together again, and it almost gives it like a chiropractic adjustment. It literally looked like she had a cloud above her head. It reminded me of the fear matrix, which is just basically nothing more than accumulation of worries and stresses and anxieties. She's overthinking.
Well, you know, it's kind of weird, but she's always had this kind of sad energy about her, even before she left Chansey and her split up. Mm-hmm. You know, she's always had, I mean, the picture with her and her tinfoil hat, www.poodleinatinfoilhat.com. Anyway, well, she's a superstar at her height. Okay, you know, I'll tell the story. At her height, somebody put up a page that said, "Can this poodle wearing a tinfoil hat get more fans than Glenn Beck?" And so a friend of mine sent me the link, and I'm like, "Poodle, tinfoil hat." So I click on the link, and whose picture is it? My dog.
Oh,
at so that funny. Point in time, she had 199,000 Facebook fans.
Wow.
At her height, she had 280,000 Facebook fans. Made me jealous. What are you talking about? Anyway, so yeah, she has her own webpage. But,
wow.
But she just has these kind of sad eyes. Maybe it's like bad past life stuff.
It's not like Grumpy Cat, is it?
Oh, no. She's the sweetest girl, but just sad. But I'm hearing about the back pain. You know, I didn't even think about that. You know, our house has been crazy the last few days, and I thought that might have been it.
But she's been picking everything up. Okay. But, I mean, I'm sure you know how to do the sage and smudging her, and it's an incredible difference of what it does for her. And with the grounding, and you'll see usually within the night, within the day to 3 days, you see the difference in them immediately. They look more centered and more present. It's quite amazing.
Well, cool. Well, Bitsy's going to be like your biggest fan now.
well, she'll be even my bigger fan if you get her salmon.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I just changed her to the blue dog food, which is salmon and chicken, and she loves it. Because, well, my thought was it smells like cat food.
She's loving it. And, you know, the cool thing about it, too, it'll give her the omegas that she needs and those amino acids. But also, too, you'll see, too, that her hair will start to grow again, too, fill in.
Okay.
There's this really fabulous stuff. I'm not sure if you can get this in the States. I'm in Canada. And it's called Melissa's Aloe Pet. And it is wonderful stuff for the animals. It heals them from the inside out, where it has aloe and garlic inside of it. And you can even rub it on their hot spots. And give them just like a teaspoon of it, and it infuses their immune system, and you see such a difference in them within a few days. It's mind-blowing.
Cool. But it sounds like, you know, kind of going back on topic, that communicating with our animals or doing healing work with our animals is something that kind of any of us could do if we wanted to.
Absolutely. And they're so grateful for it. They love it. I mean, sometimes they get enough of it. I've had many times when I've been working on clients, and Sushi will come in, and I've seen her many times where she'd stand on her hind legs, and she would use her front paws and work on the person's legs while I was working on their head. It was incredible. They're always present, too, because they bring that energy, and they have that energy of love. The other thing that's cool, too, is, I don't know how many people know this, but they say humans have 7 chakras, and animals actually only have 5. The cool part is that they don't actually have a heart chakra, because they are all heart. And their 6 and their 7 chakra are actually aligned as one. So their third eye and their crown is one.
Well, see, when I used to work on Kiko a lot, you know, because I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, so they taught us how to ground. And so then they taught us how we could ground other people. And so I thought that, you know, I could put like a little grounding cord off of her butt because, you know, first chakra butt, that was, you know, whatever. And so like I give her this little grounding cord, and it was so funny because she kind of walked away, turned, looked at me, shook her tail, dropped the grounding cord off, and then ran off and started barking. So I was like, that's and this is like, you know, the first week in school kind of thing. And I didn't even know what I was doing. So then I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So I caught her over again. I'm like, grounding cord. She walked away, shook her butt, looked at me, and ran away and started barking. I'm like, dang.
That's hilarious.
But see, then I figured out that, you know, I kind of figured out the paw thing. But one of the things that I found they like is that if you give them a grounding cord that is movable and you could just hang it off the middle of their belly, and then when they sit down, it goes to their butt. How cool is that?
It's amazing. What I like to do is I visualize if it's a female dog from the 2nd chakra and for the male dog from the root. But I also see it coming out of each individual paw as well, and then turning it into almost like a funnel and seeing it go as a whole tube of light into the center of the earth. And it's amazing how it changes. You literally see the instant changes. And it clears their field, too, as you know, and it elongates their life. So why not do it?
Well, and I'm going to throw this out just to kind of support what you're talking about because I think it's so important. On my webpage, I mean, not trying to take the limelight unless you have something similar on yours. On my webpage, soulhealer.com, and you're going to have to do a little bit of digging. But it's buried, I'm sorry. But in the products under books and CDs, and if you go to the Power Within audio CD, it says listen to a meditation online or listen to an exercise online, something like that. And it's an MP3 about how to ground. And so you can learn that for yourself, but you can also apply that grounding technique that we're just talking about to your babies.
And it's exactly the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
So you don't have to do some elaborate, crazy running around and flags, and some people get the wrong idea of what we do.
And don't smudge your dog. Not too much.
Yeah. I find with smudging is instead of using the stick, I just use little pieces of it, and it's enough. It's enough to clear their aura, yours, above the bed, which is a really good thing if you're not sleeping, and to help you also, too, to release any of those aspects from the fear matrix. Sometimes I see almost like chessboards on people's ceilings because they're strategizing and bad thinking of every single move down to the infinitesimal level and not sleeping.
Well, Bitsy doesn't have a problem with that. But, so tell a story. I love stories. So what's the weirdest, or, you know, either the weirdest or the coolest, I'm good with either, session that you've ever done with the animal?
I walked into a barn, and there was this horse, beautiful Arabian. And when I walked up to him, he just said to me, I have the worst headache. I can't take it anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, I can't handle the Pavarotti. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, just tell him to stop playing it. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? So I went over to the groomer and I said, you're going to think I'm totally insane, but your horse over there just told me that he cannot handle listening to the Pavarotti, and could you please stop it? The guy fainted, and when I brought him to, he said,
literally fainted?
He literally fainted.
Oh my God.
And he said that was all that he played in the barn. He goes, well, what would he like for me to play? I said, I don't know. I was freaked out that he even knew the name Pavarotti. So we went over to him, and I asked him, I said, well, what would you like to play? He'll go and get it for you. And he said, salsa music. I said, okay. I told him salsa. The guy freaked out. He goes, do you have any idea what his name is? No. It turned out to be tango. I was, like, blown away. A few days later, I was back at the barn again, and this other horse, her name was Sophia. She was beautiful. And she walked in, as I was walking in, she says, so you're the one that talks to us. And I said, yeah, how did you know that? She goes, oh, the pig told me. I was like, my God, it's like a hotbed of gossip in here. It's unbelievable. So the messages just got through loud and clear. About 6 months later, I was at some equestrian event, and I was there shooting a thing for some TV show. And there was a horse barn that was up from Florida, and there were 16 horses sitting in the barn, and they were playing Mexican music. And you could see the horses dancing. It was unbelievable. I stood there, and a little Mexican guy came up to me, and he goes, oh, they love it. We play this music for them all the time. So they were dancing. They were grooving. I mean, they weren't doing the Rockettes. They weren't doing, like, the high kicks and stuff. But they were moving. And it blew my mind. Animals love it. They love hearing the music. And, of course, sometimes, they get headaches from Metallica or, like in this case, Pavarotti made them nuts. But they love it. You'll know, too, I guess, because you see how they behave with it. And another time I had a squirrel. I was in Toronto on location shooting a movie and staying outside with friends in their backyard, and she was complaining about this squirrel that was making her insane. He was digging way too big holes in the backyard. So I was out one morning and meditating, and doesn't the squirrel show up? And when I saw him, I looked up at him and I said, what are you doing? And he stopped, and I swear to you, he sat up, he put his little hands on his chest, and he goes, are you talking to me? With a French accent. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. I thought I was losing it. And I go, I think I am talking to you. And he told me that he was thinking of digging a hole because he had gotten lost from Montreal. He had been curious and walked into what turned out to be a moving van. And voila, I ended up in Toronto. And he heard this rumor that if you dug a hole, you'd get to China. So he figured if he'd dig a hole, he might end up in Montreal. I was like, dude, you might be digging that hole for quite a while. I
and
thought
then you'll
I was
end up in
crazy.
China, not Montreal.
That's going to be one hell of a hole, buddy.
Well, I think that's kind of interesting because in mythology, there are countless. I mean, I can't even enumerate the number of myths of the animals communicating with each other or humans communicating with the animals. And I believe that at some point in time, there was communication between humans and animals, that we've lost that ability, or at least that ability and strength. But what's your thought about that whole idea about this communication? Because, again, there's this general consensus of that they're just kind of stupid.
Yeah. Well, again, now that the patriarch is releasing its grasp on this 6,000 years of creation, and the balance of the divine feminine is coming back in with the matriarch, those are gifts of the matriarch that come in total natural sync. So anybody who is really more aligned with the divine feminine will already have a naturally sense or attunement to crystals, to animals, and to even weather patterns and cycles. I mean, it wasn't until about even 200, 300, 400 years ago that people really started to lose their connection with the cycles and also, too, with nature, because we started to live in these metropolitan cities. So people were losing their sense also too of themselves and becoming even more stoic within their own physical bodies, literally shutting themselves off into a space of isolation. And when the divine masculine or the masculine aspect or the patriarch takes over and goes into its more, if you want to say, and I'm using this with total discernment, negative aspect where you're going now into war and poverty and everything, you lose all that connection, because you lose your connection not only to the divine, but also, or your connection isn't as strong enough because you've lost whatever connection or faith or whatever, that there is a power that exists. And that's not about being, again, an ego or, a religious aspect of being in a god or whatever. There's a god, a godhead, but there's also a mother and a father god as well, and a divine child. And now we're starting to really reclaim that. And the Egyptians, what was so interesting with them is that they had two different mystery schools. And you had the left eye of Ra and the right eye of Ra. And what they would do, it would represent the different aspects of the brain. So, of course, the left brain being logical, intellectual, schedule, GPS, this kind of stuff. They would have their own set of teachings and exercises to help people to embrace the gifts of the left brain. And then, of course, they would have the same for the right brain, which was creative, the intuitive self. So that what would happen is you would come into divine union with both sides of the brain and go into a space of full brain illumination, which is what we're going through now. And if you look into astrology, as you see now that Neptune has gone retrograde in Chiron, which I believe happened on Saturday, many people are having a lot of mental fog, illusion, illumination, breakthroughs. And we're going to see over the summer as well, too, how much of the stuff that we've been fed about who was in power or control or whatever in the earth or the world or whatever, it's all going to come out. And we're already seeing it with all this stuff happening with the Montesano stuff and the government's collapsing and all the drama that's going on. So it's all about balance, coming back into it and being in alignment with the gifts of both sides. So the full brain illumination represents that we are no longer left brain or right brain. We are both. So it's going to be a very interesting summer. And bring it on, is all I have to say.
Well, I'm looking forward to some brain balance. But and let me ask your thought on this. I mean, my observation, just looking at cycles, we're really kind of moving to the apex of the pendulum on that mental side of the pendulum. Mm-hmm. There's coming into this balance of male female, but do you think we will travel through that space and end up back on the female side just to go and swing, and swing back to be back on that male side? I totally understand
where you're coming from. I totally get your question. And I'm going to say no, because it's not going to be totally on the female. The female has had where the female was totally in charge and was totally in power. And I actually shouldn't use the word charge, but was literally in power, full power, and the masculine wasn't. Then what happens is things switched, and the masculine was in power, which is where we are now. We're coming out of the patriarch. What we're going into now is both of them being balanced so that it becomes the divine sacred union. The interesting thing about brain illumination, and there's two real key things. For those of you interested, I suggest that you Google the image of the flower of life and trace the image with a marker pen or your finger. And what it does is it infuses your pituitary gland and helps you to access parts of your brain you've never used before, blending and synthesizing the two together so that you can have full brain illumination. But the other thing is sex. And the interesting thing, too, is
say that again?
The other point that I wanted to make about brain illumination is sex.
Okay, I did hear that correctly. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to get a little...
Engage. No.
So now we're working through all the aspects that have either demoralized or brought sex to its most degraded form. Because when the mystery schools were totally in and I don't want to say power, but were totally at their fullest reign. Now it's the mystery school of life. What they used to practice also was sacred sexuality. And what they would do is instead of orgasming outwards, they would orgasm inwards, and they would pull the energy upwards, because sex was used to build the body of light. It was to help to activate and infuse and align and awaken the arc of light through the pituitary and the pineal gland. That would give you brain illumination and connect you in with the mind of God or the mind of light. So it's really interesting how to see, once you start to get all these mysteries unraveled, how you also start to see, too, how religion has gone into cutting people off. And I'm not trying to point fingers here, but Catholicism is very interesting because they cut off all aspects or connections with the mother or with the woman and created a virgin mother, and for her to have that kind of an energy or a life lesson, it's an incredible contract. But also, too, they were so hell-bent on calling the woman or blaming women, or with Mary Magdalene, for example, a whore. And it's interesting because Mary Magdalene was one of the highest initiates in the order of Isis, which was a sex priestess. And she was there to help also, too, with Yeshua when he was in physical embodiment, to also help with building his body of light and to have that sacred sexuality, which he knew was what she was. And how interesting for her, too, to be so quiet for all these thousands of years, holding that kind of knowledge and understanding that everyone was putting her down, degrading her into, calling her this whore, when in truth, it was one of the most powerful gifts. It's just mind-blowing.
When you look at indigenous cultures or things that come to us from antiquity, I mean, it seems like there is the practice of ritual, and right. I believe that all that was used in order to, kind of like alchemy, in order to manifest or create or manipulate or energize or whatever, that right, was the vehicle for creating and generating energy. But I feel like in today's society, so much of it is lost. Do you think that's something that we will be able to recreate?
Absolutely, because we're already doing it. People are awakening already with the knowledge. People are awakening. These kids nowadays are already wired up. They get it. They know it. And that's why the schools are having so much hard time with these children, because they're so aware. They have this crystal clarity and this magnetic clarity and understanding that the stuff that you learn in school isn't necessarily what you truly need to be learning. And it's really about the connection with the cycles, the universe, everything that we've had all this time. And this aspect with the schools has a lot to do with, again, the left brain. It's only feeding the left brain. Well, what about all the people who are right brain activated? What happens to them? So now
school lunches. Anyway, Charlotte, I just looked at the clock, and I don't mean to cut you off, but this hour went so super fast.
To be continued.
So, we definitely have enough time. Your web page, anything you have coming up that you want to draw people's attention to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, thank you so much. Just our new website, which is a portal to enlightenment. We have some pretty amazing blog posts and some incredible videos that we made, animated visualizations with lightspeedmotion.com. And they're animated visualizations to show you how to ground, anchor, clear your house. And we're working on a number of videos as well, too, that will be coming out in the coming days, weeks, and months that are going to obviously expand with everything that we're doing. There's diamond activations, all kinds of stuff that you might be able to find interesting. And if you do, please drop me a line. And there's going to be a really big announcement where we're going to be starting to do many more sacred journeys next year. But that's not going to be released for a few more weeks.
Ooh, it's a secret.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto your fabulous show.
Well, thanks for coming on. I had a really good time, and we will have to do it again. And do do me a favor and pop me an email with the URL to that other site, and I will make sure it goes on your little page with the archive and all that good stuff, so we can promote that for you too. Okay?
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. I know that, I put music, and it says music rolling now, so that means I got to go before I start talking over the announcer. So thank you, Charlotte, and I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you. All the best.
Okay. Bye-bye. That's Charlotte Szivak of charlotteszivak.com, and that other website she said, which I've already forgotten, which is why she has to send me the email. Anyway, next week we're going to be speaking with Keith Hunter about the lost secrets of the ancients. And so until next time, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio.